Okay, let's unpack this. You know that one book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu?
Oh, yeah. Everyone knows that one.
It's practically glued to the bookshelves of every aspiring executive, isn't it? It's
Mm.
like the go-to for strategy, competition, and let's be honest, feeling a little bit like a corporate general sometimes.
Right. The ultimate warrior CEO playbook. Yeah.
Exactly. It's touted as the guide for navigating competitive landscapes, achieving market dominance, outmaneuvering rivals, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where it gets, well, really interesting for me. Is this ancient military wisdom truly a profound, universally applicable guide for modern business? Or are we perhaps misapplying a collection of aphorisms that are, maybe a bit vague,
Mm-hmm.
applying them to a world that's just fundamentally different now?
That's a fascinating question. It really is. And it brings up something pretty important for all of us, I think. In a world that's increasingly defined by collaboration, right? By innovation that kind of leaps over traditional boundaries.
Yeah, and networks.
And by this focus on network effects rather than just, direct confrontation,
Hmm.
does the whole business as war metaphor still serve us well?
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our mission today in this deep dive, it isn't about just dismissing Sun Tzu entirely. That would be foolish. There are undeniably timeless insights in there. Preparation, discipline, understanding your competitive landscape. This stuff resonates across centuries.
Sure, absolutely.
However, we are going to offer a strong, maybe nuanced critique of the metaphor itself. We really want to question whether a purely zero-sum, conflict-oriented framework is truly healthy or maybe even effective for the modern economy.
Which thrives on partnership.
Exactly. Partnerships, co-creation, positive sum outcomes, all those things that don't really fit the war model neatly. We'll be pulling from a whole range of sources you've provided, from classic business texts right through to contemporary management thinking, trying to explore this duality.
Exactly. Our mission today is to explore this duality. We'll pull out those nuggets of wisdom from all the sources you've given us and see if we can find a clearer, perhaps a more expansive path forward than simply conquering the competition.
Right.
We want to understand where Sun Tzu still offers that profound wisdom, absolutely, but also where perhaps clinging too tightly to his military metaphors might actually be holding us back.
The enduring resonance, where Sun Tzu's insights align with modern business principles.
Okay, so let's start with where Sun Tzu really does shine, because it's easy to just, dismiss these ancient texts. But
Mhm.
what you're saying and what our sources definitely highlight is that there are these fundamental, almost timeless principles, things about organization, foresight. They totally transcend the battlefield.
Complete
It's
guy.
not all battle axes and sieges, right? There are core principles that absolutely resonate today, especially when we talk about, say, strategic imperatives and just meticulous preparation.
Mhm.
Good business, like good military planning, it just demands foresight, discipline, clear objectives.
And what's really illuminating here is how universal the need for structure and clear communication turns out to be, regardless of the context.
Yeah.
Sun Tzu says, the key to managing a large number of troops is the same as managing a small number: organization and assignments. The key to commanding a large number of troops is the same as commanding a small number: signals and orders.
Huh. Same principles, big or small.
Exactly. This isn't just about armies, is it? It's about operational efficiency, clarity, at any scale. I mean, think about a massive corporation like Walmart.
Right, the scale is incredible.
Their huge distribution system, hundreds of warehouses, thousands of stores. It's this incredibly complex logistical ballet.
Yeah.
It relies entirely on this very principle. Sam Walton himself even said, the only thing that makes the whole distribution system work so well is the dedication of the people all across it. The technology and hardware are just tools.
So it's the people within the structure.
Precisely. It emphasizes that even with the most advanced tech, the human element within that highly organized system is paramount. Just like an army depends on its soldiers' dedication and their ability to follow clear, unambiguous orders. The real genius here is seeing that the underlying principles of coordination don't change just because the numbers get bigger. It's about the quality of the organizational design and those communication channels.
That's a really strong connection, not just abstractly, but in very practical, almost tactical terms, you could say. It almost makes you chuckle a bit, doesn't it? The idea that the same rules apply to managing a tiny team in a massive multinational.
Yeah.
I remember early in my career thinking scale must fundamentally change everything. But what Sun Tzu and Walton, too, are saying is that those core principles, clear communication, clear organization, they stay constant.
They're foundational.
And it's not just about managing the masses, is it? It's also about individual focus, executive focus. Peter Drucker, in The Effective Executive, he echoes this. He talks about executives needing to know where their time goes, focusing on outward contribution, and concentrating on the few major areas where superior performance will produce outstanding
Right,
results.
that relentless focus.
Drucker actually pushes executives to literally track their time, which, a lot of people resist. How does that seemingly mundane act, logging your daily activities, how does that translate into a strategic advantage, like a general mapping troop movements?
Well, it's because that discipline of time management isn't just about personal efficiency, right? It's about strategic resource allocation.
Ah, okay. The resource being time.
Exactly. In a military campaign, every soldier, every weapon, every hour is a finite resource. If you dilute your focus across too many minor skirmishes, you risk losing the decisive battle. Drucker's insight forces executives to really confront where their true battles lie and where their forces, their time, their capital, and crucially, their talent are actually being deployed.
Not just where they think they are.
Precisely. That principle of first things first and second things not at all isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a really rigorous process of systematic abandonment, where you consciously decide what not to do, which battles not to fight.
That takes courage.
It does.
Yeah.
It's directly analogous to a general understanding that committing troops to some diversionary skirmish, even if it looks tempting, might weaken the main offensive too much. The insight here is the courage to say no, to concentrate power. That's a core Sun Tzu idea applied right to internal resource management. It's about being deliberate, ruthlessly prioritizing to get impactful results instead of scattering energy across a bunch of less important tasks.
That concentration of power you mentioned, that feels like where we start talking about building truly sustainable advantages, right? Not just winning one skirmish, but building something lasting.
Yeah, moving beyond tactics to real strategy.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, that idea of sustained strategic advantage, Hamilton Hilmer, in Seven Powers, asks that ultimate question, doesn't he? What must I do to create power in my business? This isn't just about one battle. It's about building a fortress, ensuring that long-term resilience, that competitive insulation.
Helmer's Seven Powers framework is, I think, particularly insightful because it goes beyond just generic competitive advantages. It identifies specific defensible characteristics of a business that let it generate persistent differential returns.
Meaning they can keep making more profit than competitors over time.
Exactly. It's not just about being better for a moment. It's having a structural advantage that makes it incredibly difficult for others to copy or overcome. Take branding, for instance. It's not just a logo, right? It's that deeply ingrained customer trust and affinity. It's what allows Apple to command premium prices even when the tech might be comparable, or Coca-Cola to maintain market dominance despite countless rivals. It creates this kind of psychological moat, which is way more resilient than just having a slightly better feature.
Harder to attack.
Much harder. Or think about counter-positioning. This is where a new entrant pioneers a superior business model that if the established players try to copy it, it would cause significant collateral damage to their existing business.
Ah, like Netflix and Blockbuster.
Exactly. Netflix's subscription model just wrecked Blockbuster's reliance on late fees. Or think about Warby Parker's direct-to-consumer eyewear model versus traditional opticians. The incumbents could technically copy it, but doing so would dismantle their own profitable legacy structure. It effectively makes it a battle they just can't afford to fight on those new terms.
So they're trapped by their own success.
In a way, yes. These examples show a really sophisticated form of preparation that creates a sustainable, almost unassailable strategic advantage. It's far beyond just outmaneuvering a rival in the short term. It's about shaping the battlefield itself, or sometimes even leaving it entirely by creating a whole new game.
Absolutely. And that ties straight into another foundational Sun Tzu principle, doesn't it? Knowing your terrain and your adversary.
Crucial.
Just like a general has to understand the landscape, the enemy's strengths, their weaknesses before battle, businesses must do the same. It translates directly to the absolute necessity of competitive intelligence. You just have to understand the market, the industry structure, your competitors inside and out.
Yeah.
It's not enough to be strong yourself if you don't know who or what you're really up against.
And what's fascinating here is how specific modern marketing and strategy texts build directly on this ancient idea. Crossing the Chasm, for example, advises companies to focus your communications by reducing your fundamental competitive claim to a two-sentence formula.
Okay, boil it down.
and then manage every piece of company communication to ensure it always stays within the bounds set by that formula. And critically, it emphasizes reinforcing the second sentence,
Which
the,
is,
the one that identifies your primary competition and how you are differentiated from it. This isn't just, internal cheerleading or generic marketing fluff. It's a direct, practical application of competitive analysis.
you're defining yourself against the other guy.
Precisely. You're not just saying we're good, you're saying we're good in this specific way that they are not. You're shaping the market's perception of your unique value. Companies have to differentiate, just like different military units have unique skills for different situations. And that requires a deep, almost empathetic understanding of what the other side offers, how they position themselves, and where you genuinely stand apart.
That's a fantastic point about needing to know your own capabilities, your limitations too, and how they actually stack up. Because what happens when you don't know yourself well enough, or you misjudge the adversary, or the whole terrain shifts under you?
Disaster often follows.
Yeah, sometimes that blindness can be catastrophic. Clayton Christensen lays this out so powerfully in The Innovator's Dilemma. He talks about how established firms seem unable to confront successfully downward vision and mobility, essentially being held captive by their customers.
Their best customers, ironically.
Right. And this enables attacking entrant firms to topple the incumbent industry leaders each time a disruptive technology emerged. He gives that really striking example of Seagate and the other 5.25-inch drive makers.
Classic case.
Despite their technological prowess, they were misled by their customers, notably IBM, and just completely failed to anticipate the rise of 3.5-inch drives. Why? Because their most profitable customers didn't initially need those smaller, less powerful drives?
They weren't asking for them yet.
Exactly. So it was a form of strategic blindness, a classic military pitfall, really being outmaneuvered not by superior force, but by failing to recognize a fundamental shift in the terrain or the capabilities of a new adversary coming up from below.
Which raises a really important question for you, our listener. In your own organization, how do you prevent that kind of strategic blindness? How do you balance that critical need to listen to your current profitable customer,
To pay the bills.
right, with the absolute imperative to detect and respond to those disruptive forces that might initially seem totally irrelevant or niche? Playing to Win offers a pretty comprehensive approach here. It asks, have you used the strategy logic flow framework to understand the industry, channel, and customer values, your own relative capability and cost positions, and competitive reactions?
Wow, that's a mouthful, but it covers everything.
It's essentially a holistic strategic audit. Exactly what a military commander would do before a major campaign, but tailored for the complexities of a dynamic market. It includes understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, your capability and cost positions, which helps you figure out where you can genuinely win, and just as importantly, where you might be vulnerable. It's about getting a deep, multifaceted understanding of the entire battlefield and all its players before you commit significant resources. Sun Tzu would definitely endorse that level of thoroughness. 2. The fundamental critique: why business's war often fails in modern contexts.
Okay, so we've clearly established where Sun Tzu's wisdom holds up. There are definitely timeless insights there about preparation, awareness, focus, no doubt.
Agreed.
But now, let's pivot to the core critique. And this, for me, is where it gets really interesting, because that whole business is war metaphor, it often just falls apart in the modern context, doesn't it? Especially when we look at the zero-sum fallacy.
Yes. The idea that for me to win, you have to lose.
Exactly, that deeply ingrained idea. But the modern economy, it often operates on totally different principles: collaboration, partnerships.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the modern economy frequently operates on principles that are miles away from zero-sum conflict. Paul Krugman, in A Country Is Not a Company, he offers this really crucial critique of just simplistically applying business thinking to national economies.
So.
He argues that the overall balance of payments of any country, the difference between its total sales to foreigners and its purchases from foreigners, must always be zero. Now, this is critical because it shows how a single company's self-interested win-like, say, boosting exports to create a trade surplus, doesn't just automatically scale up to benefit the whole national economy in the same way.
It's not that simple.
Not at all. An economist understands that any trade imbalance, like exporting more than you import, has to be matched by a corresponding capital account imbalance. Essentially, the country has to be importing capital, maybe through foreign investment or borrowing, to make the books balance. It's a closed system, unlike a single company's P&L.
Okay, I see.
Krugman points out these negative feedbacks, where, say, growth in one export sector might actually reduce activity in others or maybe increase imports, undermining these simplistic ideas of national winning through aggressive trade tactics. This directly challenges that firm as army metaphor, because a country, unlike one company, is this complex, interconnected system where collaboration and broader economic balance are vital, not just individual gains or zero-sum victories.
That's a really powerful counterpoint. It highlights that interconnectedness that a simple win-lose model just completely misses.
Yeah,
And it's not just in economics, is it? Even in like military context, that old knowledge is power idea, hoarding information, maintaining strict top-down control that's being challenged too.
definitely. Team of Teams talks about this radical shift away from traditional military thinking. The task force they describe, facing these incredibly complex, decentralized terrorist networks.
A totally different kind of enemy.
Exactly. They realized that information sharing had to include every part of the force. We distributed our intelligence and analysis widely without preconditions. Now, apparently this struck many as naive at first.
I can imagine giving away intel.
Right. But they were literally throwing that old adage out the window because they found that in a complex, adaptive environment, sharing information widely actually fosters collective intelligence and mutual trust. And that led to better, faster outcomes than the old top-down conquer and control mindset.
So sharing became the advantage.
It speaks to this fundamental shift from a siloed adversarial view to one of shared purpose and collective brainpower, where the human relationships we built through that generosity became the real strategic advantage. It's a completely different way of operating.
Which raises that question about how we actually get the best outcomes, doesn't it? Not just inside one company, but in any kind of collaboration.
Yeah, how do we optimize?
Stephen Covey, in The 7 Habits, he offers such a powerful take on this with positive sum thinking through synergy. He says, unity or oneness is complementariness, not sameness. Sameness is uncreative and boring. The essence of synergy is to value the differences.
Valuing differences, not eliminating them.
Exactly. It's about co-creation, not conquest. He gives that great example of a couple planning a vacation. Instead of one person winning the argument and the other losing, or even compromising where maybe both feel a bit cheated.
Yeah, the unsatisfying middle ground.
Right. They synergize to find a solution that's actually better than the solutions either of them originally proposed and better than compromise. It's a true win-win that strengthens the relationship and gets a better result. That's a world away from one side defeating the other.
And that principle applies everywhere, doesn't it? Business partnerships, team projects, customer relationships. It suggests that often the most powerful results come from leveraging diversity and finding completely new shared solutions, not just fighting over the existing pie.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If conflict isn't always the answer, and sometimes it's actively harmful, what is the answer for modern business success?
Right, what's the alternative model?
Well, often it seems to come from creating entirely new market spaces, places where competition is just irrelevant. Rather than fighting these fierce, often bloody battles in existing industries, this moves us beyond conflict into what people call blue oceans.
Yeah, the blue ocean strategy idea.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is the related concept of red ocean traps. This explicitly defines red oceans as those existing industries with intense, often brutal competition, where companies try to outperform rivals to grab a greater share of existing demand.
The traditional battlefield.
Exactly. And the business as war metaphor itself can be seen as a cognitive red ocean trap. It limits your thinking to those existing battles rather than helping you imagine and create completely new domains. The sources say many companies claim they're committed to creating new market spaces, but they often fail because of their own mental models' ingrained assumptions and theories about the way the world works.
So the war metaphor itself blinds them.
It suggests that adversarial competitive mindset itself can be this profound cognitive limitation, preventing them from cracking the code of new market creation, even when they say they want to and invest heavily. It's almost as if the metaphor keeps them stuck on the familiar battlefield, unable to see the opportunities beyond it.
Exactly. And that's where something like the Blue Ocean Leadership Framework comes in, offering a real strategic alternative. It's focused on making competition irrelevant by creating new value for customers and often reducing costs at the same time.
So it's not about fighting better, it's about changing the game.
Precisely. Designing a completely new game, often by looking at non-customers and figuring out their unmet needs. Think about P&G's Swiffer. That proved to be a whole new where-to-play choice for the hard surface cleaners business. They didn't just make a better mop to fight existing mop companies.
No, they created a whole new category.
Right, a new solution for a problem people didn't even realize could be solved differently. Or look at P&G's approach to fine fragrances, where they started with the consumer and focused on becoming the preferred innovation partner. These are prime examples of creating new value and making the old competition less relevant through innovation and collaboration, not just direct confrontation. It's about expanding the whole pie, not just fighting tooth and nail over the existing slices.
Which also brings up a really important point about the human element in business. That military-style command and control approach. Okay, maybe it worked historically in certain combat situations, but it often really damages internal trust, innovation, and employee engagement.
All things that are absolutely critical for success today.
Crucial, especially in our dynamic, knowledge-driven business context.
Yeah, it's totally antithetical, isn't it, to what we now know about effective teams. The 5 dysfunctions of a team highlights that the most important action that a leader must take to encourage the building of trust on a team is to demonstrate vulnerability first.
Vulnerability, not exactly a general's typical trait.
Right. Imagine a general in wartime projecting unshakable strength. That's the traditional image. But in business, vulnerability actually builds psychological safety. It fosters genuine team cohesion. Catherine, the leader in that book, she directly confronts the team's dysfunction. She says, "We are not functioning as a team. In fact, we are quite dysfunctional."
Takes guts to say that as the leader.
Totally. Her willingness to address it openly and the idea that leaders need to risk losing face and create an environment that does not punish vulnerability, that shows a profound departure from hierarchical war leadership. It prioritizes internal trust over just maintaining an appearance of invincibility. It's a radical flip of the traditional power dynamic.
And this commitment to internal trust, it extends to how employees are managed day to day, doesn't it? Yvon Chouinard, the Patagonia founder, in Let My People Go Surfing, he says flat out, we can't order our employees around.
Wow.
Either they have to be convinced that what they're being asked to do is right, or they have to see for themselves it's right. This reflects a profoundly democratic, sort of consensus-driven leadership style. It emphasizes persuasion and shared understanding over just dictatorial orders.
Treating people like adults?
Basically, yeah. He points out that decisions based on compromise often leave the problem not completely solved, with both sides feeling cheated or unimportant. But in contrast, consensus, when everyone comes to an agreement that the decision made is the correct one, underscores the importance of internal alignment and shared vision, rather than just internal power struggles or some top-down mandate that can lead to resentment or people just going through the motions. It really acknowledges the autonomy and intelligence of the workforce instead of treating them like, well, like foot soldiers.
That's such a crucial distinction. And it has long-term consequences, doesn't it? Beyond just day-to-day stuff. The long-term impact of ethical treatment and trust, especially when things get tough, that's often completely missed in a purely opportunistic, win-at-all-costs mindset.
You burn bridges internally.
Exactly. Ben Horowitz, in The Hard Thing About Hard Things, he shares this really personal, powerful story about selling his business. He was advised by Bill Campbell to actually stay behind and communicate directly with employees, even miss the big celebratory announcement.
That must have been hard.
Yeah, just to make sure everybody knows where they stand. And Horowitz realized, if we hadn't treated the people who were leaving fairly, the people who stayed would never have trusted me again. That just demonstrates the profound importance of internal integrity and trust. It shows the ripples from a warlike, cold, or transactional approach go way beyond the immediate deal. They shape the very culture and future of the company. You just can't conquer your own employees. You have to earn their loyalty and respect, especially when things are hard.
Which also makes you think about the potential downsides of an overly aggressive, maybe adversarial approach from the leader themselves. While someone like Elon Musk has achieved incredible things with Tesla and SpaceX,
Undeniable success, yeah.
his biography, Elon Musk, notes that his detractors describe Musk as unethical in business and vicious with his personal attacks. And crucially, these people were unwilling to go on the record, claiming to be afraid Musk would pursue litigation against them or ruin their ability to do business.
That's chilling.
It illustrates the potential negative consequences of an excessively aggressive, maybe warlike approach. Even if it drives short-term gains, it can create this culture of fear. It can damage long-term industry relationships, employee loyalty, the company's overall reputation. This certainly seems to hinder the kind of open collaboration and psychological safety that so many modern businesses really thrive on, even if it leads to undeniable progress in some specific areas. It's a trade-off, maybe a dangerous one.
And finally, maybe one of the biggest critiques of applying Sun Tzu directly to business is just the inherent vagueness of his maxims and how easily they can be misapplied, sometimes with really disastrous or even unethical results.
Right, they're open to interpretation.
His pronouncements, while profound, they can be interpreted in countless ways, can't they? And not all of them are beneficial or even intended.
Indeed. And what's particularly concerning here is how vague guidelines or even just complex rules can be actively exploited rather than providing a clear ethical or strategic compass. Andrew Fastow, the Enron executive.
Oh boy, Enron.
He famously stated that accounting rules and regulations and securities laws are complex. What I did at Enron and what we tended to do was to view that complexity, that vagueness, not as a problem, but as an opportunity.
An opportunity to bend the rules.
Essentially, he insisted he got approval for every single deal, from lawyers, accountants, directors. Yet Enron is still remembered as the largest accounting fraud in history. It's just a stark warning against treating strategic guidance or even regulations as merely something to be bent, interpreted opportunistically, or outmaneuvered like an enemy tactic.
Yeah.
It shows how a flexible, maybe war-like interpretation of rules, especially vague ones like some might find in Sun Tzu, can lead to profound ethical failures and even systemic collapse. It's not about playing a clever game. It's supposed to be about operating within a framework of integrity.
And beyond the ethics, the whole idea of precise warlike planning often just clashes dramatically with the sheer reality of modern complexity and uncertainty, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Things are just too unpredictable now.
Team of Teams highlights this so powerfully. It reveals that the average forecasting error in the U.S. analyst community between 2001 and 2006 was 47% over 12 months and 93% over 24 months.
93% error. It's basically guessing.
It's a staggering failure rate. This statistic just profoundly challenges the idea that complex systems like economies or markets can be predicted or controlled with the kind of precision assumed on a traditional battlefield. It makes rigid war plans seem not just insufficient, but actively misleading.
Setting you up for failure.
Yeah. As the book puts it so well, you cannot force the square peg of complexity into the round hole of the complicated. It just captures that fundamental limitation of using a simplified war model for highly complex, non-linear business challenges, where the future is inherently uncertain and adaptability often trumps any kind of rigid foresight. The world just isn't that predictable anymore, if it ever was.
3. Modern business paradigms. Beyond the battlefield. Okay, so if the business as war metaphor often falls short or even actively misleads us, what are the modern paradigms that are actually shaping success today? One huge one, and it's a profoundly different model, is the rise of platform economies and the power of network effects.
Ah, yes. This describes a competitive dynamic that's fundamentally different from direct confrontation, and certainly not zero-sum. Right. How does that work?
Well, what's truly revolutionary here is how blitzscaling explains it. Today's software-based platforms can achieve global distribution almost immediately. Unlike traditional businesses that are limited by geography or physical source.
Brick-and-mortar constraints.
Right. These platforms can grow exponentially, often with minimal extra cost for each new user. And the network effects of compatibility and standards create a significant and lasting competitive advantage that can be nearly unassailable.
So the bigger it gets, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. This isn't about defeating a rival in a head-to-head fight. It's about becoming this indispensable hub that actually gets more valuable as more people join and connect. This dominance then allows the market leader to effectively tax all the participants who want to use the platform.
Like Apple's App Store cut.
Precisely. Think of the iTunes Store taking its 30% share, Amazon's merchant platform, Facebook's social graph, Apple's iOS ecosystem. These weren't built primarily through conquest. They were built by becoming essential infrastructure that facilitates interactions and creates an ecosystem for others to create value within. It's so far from a zero-sum battle, it's actually a positive-sum game for the platform owner, where their growth comes from enabling others, not just winning against them.
And this concept, it's explored further in The Technological Revolution in Financial Services, right? It describes these multi-sided platforms as networks that reduce transaction costs and create network externalities, facilitating profitable interactions among users.
Right. And those network externalities just mean the platform gets more valuable for everyone as more people use it. Think about a phone network, useless with one person, incredibly valuable with millions.
Okay, makes sense.
So this article suggests that bank profits could shift significantly away from just selling traditional services towards selling technology or access to third-party providers through these kinds of electronic marketplaces. Again, it's not about banks defeating rival banks head-on.
No, it's about creating a space.
Exactly. It's about them fostering an environment where multiple parties can interact and create value. It shifts the focus from direct competition over existing services to orchestrating an ecosystem and facilitating completely new kinds of value creation. It's about being the enabler, the facilitator, not just the competitor fighting for scraps.
Which leads us naturally to another huge modern paradigm shift. Customer centricity.
Yeah.
Real value creation for the customer.
Yeah, the focus here shifts profoundly, doesn't it? Away from just defeating competitors or winning market share towards genuinely delighting customers, solving their problems in new ways. It's a subtle shift from a military mindset, but a really powerful one.
And it makes you think about how businesses sometimes lose their way by being too internally focused or competitor focused. Marketing myopia famously critiques industries that become product-oriented instead of customer-oriented.
Right, they fall in love with their own product.
Exactly. They make that fatal assumption that an ever-expanding population will ensure our growth, or that there is no competitive substitute for our industry's major product. This highlights a deep flaw. Focusing internally on production or solely on outdoing rivals with tiny improvements without truly understanding the customer's evolving, often unspoken needs.
What the customer is really trying to achieve.
Right. The oil industry is cited as an example, being too focused forever on getting information to help the oil companies improve what they are now doing rather than boosting the value those products deliver to customers. A war mentality might overemphasize internal metrics or beating rivals, completely losing sight of the ultimate customer who probably has other, sometimes non-obvious ways to solve their underlying problem. They're not just buying gasoline, they're buying mobility or energy.
Indeed. And the antidote to that myopia is just this relentless, almost obsessive focus on the customer. Jeff Bezos at Amazon is the prime example, isn't he?
Totally.
The everything store recounts his intense anger over a single bungled customer service email.
Yeah.
Even down to a single piece of punctuation, an exclamation mark. His team knew he was furious, not because of some internal turf war, but because of the potential impact on the customer experience and Amazon's long-term reputation.
The customer above all else.
It demonstrates that for Amazon, customer satisfaction is the absolute highest priority. It transcends any internal friction. It's not about beating Walmart or Target directly in every single fight. It's about being so indispensable and frictionless for the customer that the competition starts to become irrelevant. That's not a strategy of conquest. It's a strategy of relentless service and value delivery.
And sometimes that customer focus actually starts internally by creating an environment where your employees basically become the brand ambassadors.
Yeah, building from the inside out.
Starbucks, as described in Pour Your Heart Into It, apparently didn't build its brand with big external marketing campaigns first. Instead, they built the Starbucks brand first with our people, not with consumers. Their whole belief was that the best way to meet and exceed the expectations of customers was to hire and train great people.
Invest in your people first.
Right. Their employees, their partners, became our best ambassadors for the coffee and for the brand. It just illustrates building this powerful competitive advantage through internal culture, through passionate employees who connect authentically with customers. They create a positive experience that naturally attracts business rather than just trying to win market share through force or aggressive pricing or flashy ads. It's about building genuine advocacy from the inside out.
And finally, maybe tying a lot of this together and navigating today's really turbulent, uncertain environments. Organizational learning and adaptability are just paramount, aren't they?
Absolutely. The old static battle plan just doesn't cut it anymore, not when the terrain is constantly shifting under your feet.
You need to be nimble.
Exactly. Strategic flexibility points out that the needs of clients and other stakeholders are more likely to be met on the basis of cues that are not formally specified and may not even be verbalized. Subtle signals.
Yeah. It suggests that rigid military-style orders or even just formal intelligence gathering might be insufficient in these highly dynamic, complex situations. Success depends much more on tacit knowledge, on continuous feedback loops, informal learning within the organization. It's about sensing and responding quickly, maintaining a high degree of strategic agility, not just executing some pre-planned strategy that assumed the world would stand still. It's less about having one grand plan and more about continuous course correction.
And what's fascinating here is how personal this continuous learning needs to be. It has to permeate every level of the organization. HBR's 10 must-reads on managing yourself highlights that experimenting with new behaviors and seizing opportunities to practice them eventually triggers the neural connections necessary for genuine change to occur.
Rewiring the brain, basically. Exactly. It underscores the importance of continuous iterative learning and adaptation, both at the individual level and the organizational level. It's a process that's just far removed from a static battle plan where the only goal is perfect execution. Here, the capability to learn and adapt becomes the strategic advantage itself, not just the initial plan.
And the danger of not adapting is profound, isn't it? The same strategic flexibility source warns that managers are either unable or unwilling to reverse course, and these firms eventually find themselves on downward spirals from which they cannot escape.
Ouch. The death spiral.
It emphasizes the critical importance of that strategic flexibility and the danger of getting locked into trajectories based on past decisions or just a fixed, maybe warlike mindset. That kind of rigidity, that inability to shift direction when conditions fundamentally change, can lead to almost inevitable failure in rapidly changing markets. It's like a general who keeps fighting yesterday's war. Even when the enemy has completely new weapons or strategies, you just get left behind. So, okay, what does this all mean? We've definitely seen that while ancient texts like The Art of War offer undeniable wisdom preparation, resource allocation, knowing your competition, those principles absolutely resonate in any endeavor.
They're timeless in many ways.
Right. But a strict business as war metaphor, it often falls short. Sometimes it can even be actively detrimental in today's world. Modern business seems to thrive not just on conquering, but on collaboration, on creating totally new value, on cultivating internal trust and shared purpose, and on this deep, almost empathetic understanding of both customers and employees.
Indeed. And if we connect this to that bigger picture we've been discussing, the shift from red oceans of direct, zero-sum competition to blue oceans of new market creation.
Yeah.
The rise of platform economies that value network affects way more than head-to-head battles. And the profound emphasis we now see on internal trust, vulnerability, building an innovative culture, all of it suggests that the most powerful strategies today move well beyond simple conflict.
It's a different game.
It really is. It's about building, not just battling. It's about creating ecosystems where potentially everyone can thrive, not just vanquishing a single foe. It feels like a fundamental reimagining of what winning actually means in business today.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Perhaps the ultimate strategic advantage in the 21st century isn't really in outmaneuvering an enemy at all. Maybe it's in seeing potential partners where others only see rivals, cultivating that internal strength and shared purpose, and just evolving beyond the battlefield entirely. The greatest win might actually be redefining the whole game itself.
Which raises, I think, an important final question for you, our listener. In your own professional life, where do you find that business as war metaphor may be limiting creative solutions or perhaps hindering valuable collaborations? And what might it look like to consciously shift that paradigm, even just in a small way, towards a more collaborative, value-creating approach? Maybe the next truly great strategy isn't hidden in ancient military texts, but in our willingness, our creativity, to invent something entirely new together.